How did this unarmed 26-year-old father of two go from hanging out in his hotel room
Lay down on the ground
to dead in the hallway? That night, January 18th, Daniel befriended two hotel guests on the way to his room. A man named Luis Nunez and Monique Portillo, the woman he emerged with on that body cam video.
If you did, I'm so scared.
Okay.
Just after the shooting, Monique tells police that an hour earlier, Daniel invited Luis and her to his room for a nightcap.
This is the first time you met him was tonight in the elevator?
Yeah.
Okay.
Monique says while in the room, Luis asked to see the pellet gun Daniel used for work. Unbeknownst to them, a couple downstairs saw the gun near the window and had the hotel call police.
Did he ever point it at you?
No.
Or threaten you, Luis? No?
Shortly after that, Monique says Luis left the room to use his phone. And the next thing she knew,
You guys called,
Phone
and that's when that guy said, he's like, hey, it's the police, they want us to go outside.
Okay. Then what happened?
They shot him.
the next morning, Lainey can't reach her husband.
For him not to answer my call when I was taking the kids to school, which was our everyday normal. I mean, I knew something was wrong immediately.
She says she contacted police but got nowhere, which led to a terrifying thought and a desperate call.
Eventually, I had the intuition to call the medical examiner. I gave them his name and date of birth, and they said that they had a file.
A realization she says still feels like a nightmare.
I just started saying no, and I just remember hearing whatever Disney movie was in the background. And then that moment that first hit me where I realized, oh my God, my kids just lost their dad and I have to tell them.
Just before telling her daughters, Lainey asks her friend to take this picture.
Because I knew that from then on, like, nothing would be the same for them, and that was like the last little bit of innocence I could ever capture.
Their lives changed forever. And approximately 2 months later, Officer Philip Brailsford's life would change as well. In a surprise move, he's suddenly charged with Daniel Shaver's murder.
This was absolutely murder, and I think it was cold-blooded murder. Daniel Shaver in the video is crying and begging for his life. He's saying, please don't shoot me. It should tell the police officers who were there that he posed no threat.
But Brailsford's lawyer, Michael Picaretta, says when it comes to police shootings, it's not that simple.
There's no rule of the street where the suspect says, don't shoot me, and officers go, okay, that's the rule, we put our guns away. It doesn't work that way. Deadly force is justified when an officer reasonably believes that there's an imminent threat of death or serious injury.
He says it's not the actual threat that matters, but the perceived threat, which in this case was Brailsford's belief that Shaver was reaching for a gun.
An officer doesn't have to wait until they see the cold glint of steel or muzzle flash to react, and someone makes a motion consistent with drawing a weapon, they have to react.
But Crime Watch Daily brought in a police training consultant who questions why Shaver was even in that position in the first place.
If they would have had Schaefer come out, put his hands up, do a 360, even to the point of lifting up his shirt, they could see his waistband, I think things could have changed drastically. Once Schaefer was down on his knees, there wouldn't have been such a huge, I think, threat to the officer, knowing that there wasn't anything in his waistline.
And attorney Ben Meiselas, who also filed a wrongful death lawsuit on behalf of Lainey, claims there were many ways officers could have de-escalated the situation.
They could have listened to him. There's no police training out there that says you give these commands so in your face, dominant.
Don't talk, listen! Hands straight up in the air!
He says instead, Sergeant Langley, the one heard shouting commands just off camera, escalated things and created the dangerous situation that led to Officer Brailsford's perceived threat.
What he says is if you make any mistake, we will treat your mistake as a threat, and we will likely shoot you.
You may not survive it. Do you understand me? Yes, sir.
That absolutely goes against any police protocol. Making a mistake to this ridiculous and horrid game of Simon Says that Sergeant Langley was playing is not grounds, does not give justification for the shooting that takes place.
And as for the movement that led to Daniel's shooting, It happened as he approached Monique's bag, left in the middle of the floor.
I think when Shaver went for his hip, it looked like he was going to pull up his pants, which is instinctual.
But who knows that? You're sitting there in the moment. After the fact, everyone goes, oh, he must have been pulling up his shorts. They say that because now they know there was not a firearm. The decision has to be made before you know that.
Deadly force is absolutely supposed to be the last option. Here, not only did it appear to be their first option, they were going to shoot to kill him the moment Sergeant Langley started barking those outrageous and horrible commands.
Mycelis also questions why Brailsford, with just 2 years on the force, was providing lethal cover.
Here in Philip Brailsford, we had a 25-year-old kid who had prior excessive force incidents before this.
In fact, though he was ultimately cleared, Brailsford had been investigated at least 3 times before for using an inappropriate amount of force. On the night of the shooting, Brailsford was armed with his personal AR-15 assault rifle, which was allowed by Mesa PD, but it's what was etched on Brailsford's gun cover that really raised eyebrows.
The etching on the AR-15 says "you're blank" on it.
What did that tell you about this individual?
Told me that, he was aggressive. Police officers used to, and there's some are still called peace officers. There is nothing peaceful about that inscription.
If you're willing to etch that into your gun, you view your job as a police officer like a video game, a first-person shooter.
But what will a jury think? And will they hear the whole truth?
Do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Coming up.
I'm staring at these individuals every day because it's like, literally, I want you to peer into my soul and I want you to see the pain.
Justice for Daniel Shaver is in the hands of a jury, along with Philip Brailsford's fate.
Do find the defendant, Philip Mitchell Brailsford, on the charge of count 1, second-degree murder.
You state your name.
Philip Mitchell Brailsford.
A little nervous?
Just a little bit.